Hi, my name's John and I will edit your images. Thank you very much for everybody who sent in their images for me to edit. It's great to have such an audience. I'm very happy to have such a strong response to this post I did. First of all, editing images is a great way of you analyzing your photographs, and actually to see whatever you need to change in post-processing or editing is a good indication of what you did wrong in the first place. The second bit is quite often people get overwhelmed with how to actually edit an image, because there's like a gazillion different settings you can apply to get the picture how you think you would want it. So that's the second part. I will go through step by step all the things I do to post-process an image. So on to the first person. I've chosen this image by Amit. Amit sent me this image to edit. And well, he sent me a lot of images to edit actually, thanks for that. But I've chosen this one to edit in this video and to share with you what edits I do because I think it's a great image. First of all, the camera settings you can see here, it's ISO 640, 170mm, f5 and 1/125th of a second. Now I know that this is shot on a 7D Mark II and a Canon 100-400 IS2. That's great. So camera settings wise, I think this is fine. It was shot in the right camera settings. My criticism would be that it was shot landscape and I would have shot it portrait. Also, I would have zoomed out a bit more. 170 is still quite zoomed in. If you shot out to 100 and you'd done it portrait, you can actually see how high the tiger up is off the ground, because here we don't know whether the ground is just immediately out of the frame or is it 50 meters out of the frame. That's my only critique of this image. The rest of it now is the post-processing I would do. So I do my processing in Adobe Lightroom, and I like it because it combines both the storage of my images and also all the editing, and it's non-destructive, so there's no problem there. So I've got two. I've done the original and I've got a virtual copy of it, and let's see, the first thing I can see looking at it is it seems a bit blue. Now this is probably because it was shot in auto white balance. So because the tiger's orange, the tree's got a very yellowy orange tint, and the greens come up as yellowy and orange, the camera will automatically try and compensate with that by making the images slightly bluer. So the first thing I would do is actually change the temperature of the image. So I reckon somewhere around, not too much, somewhere around there. Somewhere around there. That's a bit more warm. I think that's more natural color that I would see in this scene. I also have a personal preference for slightly warmer images, so this you can always change yourself. But I think changing the white balance in this instance is important. Okay, the next thing, the image as a whole is quite nicely exposed. I think these backgrounds are a little bit too overexposed, and that will come out from the metering. So probably I'm going to underexpose this by about half a stop. And I would also increase the contrast by, I don't know, 25? Increase the contrast a little bit. Now, the main subject of this is the tiger, and here, because I've reduced the exposure, I want to bring up the tiger again into the forefront of the image, so I'm going to bring out the shadows. So I've flattened the image a bit, but I've made the background a lot less bright. If you have a bright background, it detracts from the image quite often. So I try and have in this kind of image, I'll try and have the background as just that, in the background. I don't want it jumping out to the foreground of our attention in the image. So I brought back the shadows. Now, the whites, that's fine, and the blacks, I think I'll bring down a bit because the blacks make the colors pop. So I'll go down -30. So already, I'm going to switch between the virtual copy I had before. Already from the virtual copy to my edits, already I think the image is looking a lot nicer. Clarity, I think in this image is fine. Vibrancy, I usually bunk up as well because I like quite vibrant images. So I usually go up to 25 all the time in vibrancy. So already in, I don't know, 30 seconds, I've gone from this, which now looks like a very blue toned image, to this image, which looks a lot more natural. Usually I don't like to crop, but in this image I'm going to crop because there's this distracting branch here. It's not, if it was more in the frame, I might leave it because it gives a little bit more depth to the image, but it's just cutting off this corner, which is distracting me. So I'm actually going to crop. I usually lock the aspect ratio. I like to keep the same aspect ratio. And I'm going to bring it down. Now I'm bringing it down and not centering it. And I'm putting the tiger quite nicely in this third, on this third line. And there you go. I've zoomed in again, which is fine to do because this is a high resolution camera with excellent image quality. So a little bit of cropping doesn't really detract from the image quality. And I actually think this composition is a little bit nicer. All right. Really, at this point, you could stop. And that's all I would actually do to an image. But if you wanted to enhance it more, there is a little trick I do. I'm spilling my hands here a little bit. And I use the adjustment brush. And I have an adjustment called Fur. And basically, this allows me to paint on an adjustment in a local area. And I increase the exposure by about half a stop and the contrast. And by increasing the two of these together, it doesn't look so garish. I increase the clarity and the saturation in this area and the sharpness by 25. So this will basically allow me to paint in these particular changes in one area. And I use this for, as the name dictates, for fur, for editing fur. So I will first of all show the selection mask overlay down here. So this means when I paint, it shows me red where I've painted. I'm just going to very quickly paint over the tiger, okay? Nothing too drastic. Reduce the size of the brush for the ears. There you go. Now I remove it. You can see now the tiger's still there. It has some small improvements, and I'll toggle these improvements so you can see it. So that's how it was before. This is how it is. So it just kind of adds a little bit more texture to the fur and brings out the subject in the image. So it's a little bit more obvious that this is what you're looking at. And I don't use this all the time, but sometimes in this image I think it's quite nice because it's really bringing the tiger to the forefront of our attention in the image. And yeah, pretty much that's it. That's all I would do. Very quick, easy. I try not to spend much time editing images. I would remember the things I've corrected. I would change the composition next time if I had, or Amit had the chance to take this image. I would suggest that he thinks of the composition a little bit more, because that could have really added to the image and it could have made what is a great image even better. Alright guys, thanks for watching. I will do another one of these soon. As I say, I've had lots of enthusiasm for this, so I'll keep it going. I'll try and do one a week or one every 10 days or 2 weeks, depending on how much time I have to do it. If you want me to edit your images, there's a form below you could just fill in and I will do so.